And an interview between CBS reporter and one of former President Trump's impeachment lawyers is going viral. In a heated exchange after Trump was acquitted, the lawyer is accusing media outlets of pushing narratives and trying to divide the country. And TD's Grace Coulter has the story.
The interview ended with Trump's lawyer, Michael Vanderveen, taking off his microphone and appearing to throw it to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. I see you taking off your microphone now.
The heated exchange, posted by CBS News on Saturday, has already racked up over 9 million views on Twitter.
The media is trying to divide this country. You are bloodthirsty for ratings, and as such, you're asking questions now that are already set up with a fact pattern.
The interview was going smoothly until reporter Lana Zak asked the lawyer about the doctored evidence presented by the Democratic House managers, including adding a Twitter verification checkmark on a tweet and changing the date of a tweet. Vanderveen accused the reporter of framing her question in a way that downplayed the doctored evidence.
And the selective editing, you say, of the tapes. Is that how? Is that the doctored evidence of what you're speaking?
That's not enough for you?
Vanderveen emphasized that it's not okay to doctor evidence and called it unconscionable. He said when the impeachment managers were caught, they didn't even say anything about it or offer an excuse.
And the media shouldn't be letting them get away with it either. I'm tired of the biased media on both sides, left and right. What this country wants, what this country needs, is this country to come together.
He says the left and the right need to find a middle ground. To do this, he says the media has to stop being so slanted and divisive and instead report the truth. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
The U.S. is in part supporting the expansion of China's military. That's as major American banks have invested billions of dollars in a Chinese cell phone maker tied to the country's military. NTD's Don Ma has more on the story.
Major U.S. banks are backing a top Chinese cell phone maker with known ties to the Chinese military. The phone maker, Xiaomi, is a top player globally among cell phone manufacturers, only falling behind Samsung, Apple, and Huawei. February 9th data from the Hong Kong Central Clearing and Settlement System, a stock exchange website, shows major banks like JP Morgan, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley are heavily invested in the Chinese company. Together, the banks hold about 6 billion Xiaomi shares. That's about a quarter of the company's total shares, valued at billions of dollars. The bank's support of the Chinese company is raising concerns, as its founder has connections to the Chinese military, also known as the People's Liberation Army. Xiaomi is a relatively new company, founded in 2010 by Chinese entrepreneur Lei Jun. Prior to 2010, Lei was the CEO of Chinese corporation Kingsoft. The software company was established at the request of the Chinese Communist Party's Military Commission. Lei still has deep connections to Kingsoft. He currently serves as the chairman of the company. Lei is tied to China's military in his personal life as well. One of his close friends of 30 years is a graduate from China's University of Defense Science and Technology of the People's Liberation Army. Lei has said he thinks of the friend like a brother. Posting on social media platform Weibo, he writes, quote, 30 years of my life, 30 years of brotherhood, all are so dear to my heart. How many comrades like this can one obtain in his life? Due to its connections, Xiaomi was blacklisted by former U.S. President Donald Trump. The U.S. State Department labeled it as a military-owned company controlled by the CCP. The Trump administration has said that the U.S.'s investment in Chinese companies tied to the Chinese military will support the expansion of their military. Before leaving office last month, he issued an executive order requiring United States investors to remove their investment in Xiaomi and other blacklisted companies by November of this year. A senior Trump administration official has called the order, quote, a key tool to protect U.S. investors from funding Chinese military modernization. The Biden administration has since postponed the investment ban cutoff date and is set to review the policy. That's after Xiaomi sued U.S. government departments and officials, denying connections to the Chinese military. Don Ma, NTD News.
Biden's pushing Congress to buckle down on gun control. On the third anniversary of the Parkland, Florida mass shooting, Biden called for stricter oversight for gun owners and manufacturers. NTD's Melina Weisskopf tells us what Biden says his goals are and what they could look like in practice.
Biden's now calling for a few sweeping gun control measures. He's asking Congress to start working on laws to take away immunity for gun manufacturers. Immunity is what protects gun manufacturers from being sued for any violence that may happen with their product. If this immunity is stripped away, the manufacturers themselves are at risk of being stripped away too.
First of all, he's trying to make sure that gun manufacturers can be sued for the misuse of their firearms, so that if a criminal committed a crime with a gun, the manufacturer could be sued for the damages, which would put every gun manufacturer in America out of business.
Biden also wants Congress to pass a law banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. This, of course, is an attempt to prevent violent crime, but cities that have implemented stricter gun control laws are cities that continue to see high crime rates, like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Another law Biden's advocating for would require background checks on all gun buyers. The vice president of the Second Amendment Foundation says it could be a step toward a government-held list of gun owners. In places like the 1930s in Germany, those were used to confiscate civilians' weapons and impose a total ban on guns.
But it happens in any totalitarian type of country, and as more totalitarian leaders pop up pushing socialism and other government schemes of controlling the populace, one of their means to make sure they can implement their philosophy is to ban firearms.
And Congress already has some legislation that goes even further than Biden's proposals. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas wrote legislation that would require gun owners to pay at least $800 a month for an insurance policy. The legislation also requires people to go through a government psychological evaluation before permission to buy a gun. Gottlieb says lately they've seen skyrocketing support for their grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment.
Gun owners are responding. They're now realizing that their rights really are under attack and under threat.
Now, even though Democrats control both the House and the Senate, some Republican senators would need to support these efforts to pass new gun laws. Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
And the New York Times has issued a correction to an article about a man's death that House Democrats used as evidence for the impeachment trial. The correction is sparking outrage and calls for media accountability. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
The New York Times reported that Capitol Police Officer Sicknick died, quote, from brain injuries he sustained after Trump loyalist who overtook the complex struck him in the head with a fire extinguisher, citing two anonymous law enforcement officials. And while there were no official reports on this, other media outlets then echoed the Times' claims. The article was also used as evidence by House Democrats in their impeachment memo. The memo read, "The insurrectionists killed a Capitol Police officer by striking him in the head with a fire extinguisher." But now, over a month later, the Times is walking back on its claims. The update added on Sunday reads, "New information has emerged regarding the death of the Capitol Police officer Brian Sicknick that questions the initial cause of his death provided by officials close to the Capitol Police." To date, no one knows what exactly caused Sicknick's death, leading some to wonder why the correction took so long to make. NTD reached out to the New York Times, but they didn't get back to us before airtime. Capitol Police released a statement on January 7th, saying that Sicknick had died that evening. They said Sicknick had been injured while physically engaging with protesters, and that there would be an investigation into his death. On January 8th, Sicknick's brother Ken told ProPublica that Brian had a text from him the evening of January 6th, saying that he got pepper sprayed twice, but that he was in good shape. He did not mention any injuries from a fire extinguisher. The next day, the family was told Brian had a blood clot and had had a stroke. It's now being investigated if he inhaled bear spray, which may have led to his death. Political commentators and journalists are calling for accountability from the New York Times. Kyle Becker is saying the correction is too little too late, as the damage has already been done. Reporting by Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Do you ever second-guess videos that come across your social media feed? Deep fakes are becoming more common, but we might also be one step closer to combating them. NTD's Steve Gigliotti has more.
Merriest of Merry Christmases.
Deepfakes like these are not only the source of humor in our social media feeds, but are a real threat taken seriously by lawmakers for the potential spread of misinformation to the public.
For example, someone could edit and distort videos of people to say things they would never actually say. I really think Ohio State has a chance this year. See, I would never say that.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of places that people even trust anymore, and I think we're in a really dangerous place.
2 researchers from the University of California, San Diego, through their research on exposing inadequacies in current deepfake detection software, are bringing us one step closer to building the tools to determine reality from fiction.
While there has been a lot of traction in developing these detection methods, what happens is that these methods train on an existing dataset of fake and real videos.
The team also suggested that in addition to more advanced software detection, the manufacturers of equipment like cell phones and cameras build in hardware that can serve as a digital footprint in order to detect and combat deepfakes.
It's important to take a step back and actually think like an attacker and see, well, how can it be bypassed?
Just like antivirus software, anti-deepfake software may be a trend in the future to help us combat fake videos like this one here. Steve Gelati, NTD News.
The Minneapolis Police Department is short-staffed following last summer's unrest. Now their city council wants to spend $6.4 million to recruit new officers. The death of George Floyd last summer sparked riots and led to the burning of a police precinct. Activists called for the police department to be dismantled. Officers left the force in record numbers. Now Minneapolis doesn't have enough cops. Some residents complain about an increase in violent crime and longer police response times. They're pushing to get more officers hired. Hi there. A quick update. Social media has some new restrictions which might affect your access to our channel. If you want to stay tuned, make sure you visit us directly at ntd.com. We'll also have a newsletter coming out soon, and you can sign up for that now, so stay in touch. Thanks for watching.